Imagine I walk into the architecture firm where my son-in-law works, and he freezes mid-conversation with a client. Then he laughs nervously and says, "Security, there's a confused old man who wandered in. Can someone help him find the exit?" His colleagues gather around, some snickering. But then the founding partner steps out of his office, looks at me, and says, "Mr. Whitmore, we've prepared the conference room for your $22 million development contract. And Derek, pack your things. You're done here." My son-in-law's smirk died that day, but that was only the beginning of his downfall. Before we continue, please subscribe to Silver Vengeance and leave a comment telling us what state you're watching from. Now, let me tell you how I got here. The February wind cut through downtown Seattle as I pulled my old Ford F-150 into the driveway of my daughter's house in Bellevue. My son-in-law's BMW X7 sat there like a monument to his own importance, freshly waxed, despite the winter slush coating every other car on the street. I'd driven 40 minutes from my apartment in Tacoma. A simple 2-bedroom place near the waterfront. Nothing fancy. Just enough space for me, my books, and the quiet I'd grown to appreciate since my wife Eleanor passed 3 years ago. Through the living room window, I could see my grandson Tyler pressed against the glass, waving frantically. He was 9 years old and still got excited when Grandpa visited. His sister, Madison, 11, appeared beside him with a more reserved wave. Even from outside, I noticed Tyler's sweater looked thin, the kind of thing you'd wear in October, not February, in the Pacific Northwest. Derek opened the door before I could knock. He stood there in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. "Walter, you're early." He glanced at his watch, a Rolex Submariner he'd mentioned 17 times since buying it. "Sarah's still getting the roast ready. Come in, I guess." I stepped inside, wiping my boots carefully on the mat. The house smelled like rosemary and something expensive. Candles, probably. Everything in this house was calculated to impress. "Let me take your coat." Derek reached for my worn Carhartt jacket, his eyes scanning my flannel shirt, my old jeans, my work boots I'd owned since the early 2000s. I could see him cataloging every detail, filing it away as evidence of my decline. Sarah appeared from the kitchen. My daughter, 36 years old but looking older. Tired around the eyes in a way that worried me. She'd been beautiful and fierce once. Now, she moved carefully, like someone navigating a minefield. "Dad, you made it." She hugged me quickly, then stepped back as Derek positioned himself beside her. A united front, or at least the appearance of one. "Wouldn't miss Sunday dinner," I said. We sat down to eat. Derek took the head of the table without hesitation, despite the fact that I was the eldest person in the room. The children sat across from me, quiet and watchful. Kids develop that look when they're used to measuring their words carefully. Derek poured himself wine from a bottle I noticed cost $89. I'd seen the price tag still stuck to the back. He didn't offer me any. "So, Walter, how's the retirement home treating you?" He cut his meat with surgical precision. Must be quite an adjustment after running that little machine shop for so long. That little machine shop was Whitmore Precision Manufacturing. I'd built it from nothing in 1979. 43 years of my life, designing and producing specialized components for aerospace companies. Sold it 2 years ago for $28 million to a German industrial conglomerate. All cash. But Derek preferred his version of my history. "It suits me fine," I said. I couldn't do it. A man needs purpose, drive. He gestured vaguely with his wine glass. "Speaking of which, did you see the BMW outside? X7 M60i. Just picked it up last month. The firm expects a certain image from their senior architects." Sarah smiled weakly into her water glass. I noticed she wasn't drinking the expensive wine either. "That's quite a vehicle," I said carefully. $93,000. Derek said it like he was reciting a trophy. "But you have to spend money to project success. Not everyone understands that." He glanced at my flannel shirt. "Madison tried to ask me about my week." Derek talked over her. 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. Twin-turbo V8. Though I don't suppose you'd appreciate that, driving that old truck. It gets me where I need to go. Practical, He said it like a diagnosis. That's the word for it. Practical. The meal continued in this pattern. Every topic became an opportunity for Derek to demonstrate his superiority and my irrelevance. When Tyler finally managed to ask about going fishing this summer, Derek interrupted. Walter doesn't have time for hobbies anymore. Retirement on a fixed income is expensive, right? Have to watch every penny. I watched Sarah refill his glass before it was empty. An automatic gesture. She'd learned his rhythms, his expectations, his moods. This wasn't the daughter who'd argued about politics with me over breakfast, who'd questioned everything, who'd wanted to become an environmental lawyer. She'd met Derek in law school. He was getting his architecture degree at the same university. And slowly, piece by piece, she'd become someone smaller. Actually, I said, I was thinking about Tyler's basketball league. Sarah mentioned the registration fees went up this year. I'd be happy to cover it, maybe get him some new sneakers if he needs them. Tyler looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Derek set down his fork with deliberate care. We provide for our children, Walter. We don't need handouts from family. It's not a handout. It's a gift from their grandfather. We don't need charity from someone living in a 2-bedroom apartment on Social Security. His voice had gone cold, final. Sarah's fork paused halfway to her mouth, then continued. No defense, no intervention. After dinner, I asked to see the kids' rooms under the pretense of checking out Tyler's basketball trophy from last season. Madison's desk had a broken lamp held together with electrical tape. Tyler's winter coat, hanging in his closet, had a torn zipper that wouldn't close properly. But the master bedroom door stood half open as I passed. I glimpsed the California king bed with its designer bedding, tags still attached to decorative pillows. $800 for pillows. The number was clearly visible from the hallway. Madison whispered to me outside her room. Grandpa, do you like Dad's new car? It's very nice, sweetheart. Dad says we might get new tablets for Christmas next year. After his bonus, she tugged at her sweater sleeve, which was fraying at the wrist. These are still okay, though. I found Derek in the living room scrolling through his phone, some app showing stock prices. Thank you for dinner, Derek. I'll call next week about visiting. Sarah will let you know when we're available. He didn't look up. We're busy people. Important projects at the firm. Not everyone has unlimited free time. Derek, I'd like to spend more time with my grandchildren. We'll see. He waved dismissively. Drive safe. That truck's getting old. Might want to think about something more reliable. The drive back to Tacoma took 50 minutes through rain-slicked highways. My apartment greeted me with familiar quiet. Small by some standards, but organized. Everything in its place. Eleanor's photo on the bookshelf, watching over the room we'd planned to share in retirement. I made tea and sat at my desk. Opened my laptop. The banking app loaded slowly on my old computer. The balance appeared. $26,843,217.51. I'd sold Whitmore Precision 2 years ago. The company had been my life's work. 43 years of early mornings, calculated risks, and innovations that kept us ahead of the competition. The buyer was a German aerospace supplier looking to expand into the American market. All cash. Clean deal. No one in my family knew the real number. Sarah assumed I'd gotten maybe $1 million, enough to retire comfortably, but nothing extraordinary. Derek thought less. I closed the laptop and looked at the framed photo on my wall. Whitmore Precision's opening day, 1979. I was 34 years old, standing beside the first CNC machine I'd bought, used, and rebuilt myself, wearing my father's watch, building something real. They thought modest living made me weak. Derek saw the small apartment, the old truck, the flannel shirts, and assumed poverty. Sarah had stopped asking about my finances years ago, probably embarrassed to discuss money with someone she thought was struggling. I opened a fresh document, titled it Family Observations, February 2024. Began typing. Children's clothing condition, luxury purchases versus basic needs, Derek's spending patterns, the BMW timing versus kids' winter gear. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd start watching more carefully. Not with anger. Anger clouds judgment. With precision, The same precision I'd used analyzing supplier contracts and production efficiency for 4 decades. Derek had made a critical miscalculation. He'd assumed I was finished, powerless, irrelevant. I saved the document, created a password-protected folder, and went to bed. 4 days later, I sat at my kitchen table while morning light stretched across my laptop screen. Coffee beside me had gone cold. I'd been researching private investigators in the Seattle metropolitan area since 5:30 in the morning, reading reviews, checking licenses, cross-referencing complaint records with the state licensing board. I narrowed the list to 3 candidates. The first 2 felt wrong, too flashy or too vague about their methods. But the third, a woman named Patricia Reeves, agreed to meet me that afternoon at a coffee shop in Federal Way. Neutral territory. She arrived exactly on time. Mid-50s, practical haircut, sensible clothes, ordered black coffee, and sat down without unnecessary small talk. "You said this was family-related. I need information about my son-in-law. His behavior concerns me. My daughter seems different than she used to be. I need facts, not speculation. What specifically concerns you?" "He's spending beyond any reasonable means. $93,000 car while his children wear worn-out clothes. Either he's hiding income or hiding debt. Possibly both." Reeves pulled out a small notebook. 2 weeks, full surveillance and comprehensive background check. $4,500. I'll need his schedule, vehicle information, workplace details. I'd prepared everything the night before. Derek's work hours at Mercer and Associates Architecture. The BMW's license plate. His typical routine based on what I'd pieced together from Sarah's occasional comments. I slid the paper across the table. "Half now, half when you deliver the final report. I want brief daily updates. Nothing in writing until the complete report. Cash preferred." I handed her an envelope containing $2,250. We shook hands. She left first. Professional. The days crawled past. Reeves sent brief texts. Subject at workplace. Extended lunch observed. Evening routine documented. Meeting with unknown female. Restaurant surveillance continuing. 11 days after hiring her, Reeves called. "We need to meet. Same location, 2 o'clock. The folder she slid across the coffee shop table was thick. Photographs, all time-stamped. Derek with a younger woman, late 20s, elegant clothes, at 4 different restaurants, 2 hotels. His hand on her waist, her fingers touching his face. Intimate postures that left no room for alternative interpretation. Her name is Vanessa Thornton. She's an interior designer his firm contracts with regularly. Based on the pattern of meetings I've documented, I'd estimate this has been going on at least 8 months, possibly longer. I studied each photograph methodically, processing the information without letting emotion cloud analysis. "You're certain about the timeline?" Photographs don't lie. Restaurants documented include Canlis, the Walrus, and the Carpenter, and Eden Hill. Hotels include the Edgewater and Hotel Sorrento. He uses a separate credit card, different from what I assume are family accounts. Reeves produced a second set of documents. Background check revealed personal loans under his name only. Approximately $85,000 borrowed in the past 14 months across 3 different lenders. Credit cards, I found, are maxed. Combined with your daughter's mortgage and the car loans, total family debt is approximately $470,000. I absorbed this carefully. Does my daughter know about any of this? Nothing in joint accounts reflects these debts. He's managing payments from a separate checking account, which means either hidden income or he's juggling payments and falling behind. My assessment is that he's living beyond his means to maintain 2 separate lifestyles. The mathematics don't work long-term. One major unexpected expense and the whole structure collapses. I paid her the remaining $2,250. Drove home with the folder on my passenger seat. But I needed first-hand confirmation. Photographs were evidence, but I wanted to see this myself. The following Thursday, I positioned myself at Eden Hill, one of the restaurants Reeves had documented. Arrived at 11:45, ordered coffee at the bar, took a seat with a clear view of the dining room reflected in a decorative mirror. Derek arrived at 12:15 with Vanessa, laughing. his hand on her lower back, the same possessive gesture I'd seen him use with Sarah. He pulled out her chair, ordered wine without glancing at prices, leaned across the table to touch her hand. I photographed them through my phone's camera, pretending to read emails. One image captured his wedding ring, clearly visible, while his fingers intertwined with hers across the white tablecloth. The wine he ordered cost $140. I heard the server announce it. This was a man drowning his family in debt to fund his ego and his affair, while his children wore fraying clothes and broken zippers. I left before they noticed me. Paid for my coffee in cash. That evening, I spread everything across my desk. Investigators' report, my supplementary photographs, financial analysis I'd compiled from public records Reeves had legally accessed. The timeline I'd built. Affair began approximately 8 months ago. Debt acceleration started 6 months ago. BMW purchased 3 months ago. The pattern was mathematical, predictable. The spiral of a man living a fantasy he couldn't afford. I researched Mercer and Associates architecture thoroughly, their project portfolio, their founding partners, their reputation for high-end residential and commercial design, their major clients, and there, buried in their website's client testimonials, I found exactly what I needed. They specialized in custom residential design for wealthy clients, commercial development projects, high-end renovations. Their typical project budgets started at $2 million. What if a wealthy new client wanted to commission a major development project? What if that client insisted on working directly with senior partners for discretion? What if that client had the resources to become one of their largest accounts? What if that client was me? I began drafting an email to Richard Mercer, founding partner, professional language, substantial development project requiring discreet handling, cash financing available, request for private consultation with senior leadership only. No mention of Derek, no hint of family connection, different email address than anything connected to my personal life. I wrote and rewrote the email for 3 hours, refining every word. Around 9 that evening, I called Sarah. Brief check-in. Routine. Just calling to see how you're doing, sweetheart. Her voice sounded distant. Tired. I'm fine, Dad. Busy with the kids' schedules. Derek's been working late a lot. Everything okay? You seem stressed. The defensiveness came immediately. Everything's fine. Derek has a big project. We're fine. If you ever need anything. I have to go, Dad. Talk soon. She hung up. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, only my laptop's glow illuminating the desk. The email to Richard Mercer was complete. Unsent. I'd wait until morning. Send it at 7:30, like a serious businessman, starting his day with purpose. On my desk, I arranged the materials. Reeves' final report, my photographs, financial analysis, firm research. Beside them, I placed a handwritten list titled Objectives. 3 items. 1. Expose Derek professionally. 2. Protect Sarah and grandchildren financially. 3. Ensure grandchildren's future, not revenge. Strategic protection. I saved everything to an encrypted folder. Created a physical backup in the locked filing cabinet where I kept my business sale documents and Eleanor's jewelry. Tomorrow morning, the next phase would begin. Derek thought he knew who I was. Retired. Diminished. Irrelevant. A practical old man in a flannel shirt. He was about to learn the difference between living simply and being simple. The cursor hovered over the send button. Wednesday morning, 7:32. I'd composed the message 4 times, refining each word until it felt right. The name in the contact form, James Crawford. A name with no connection to Walter Whitmore or anyone in Derek's life. Subject line. Development Project Inquiry. Confidential. The message referenced interest in a custom residential development, mentioned recent business liquidation, emphasized need for absolute discretion due to the project's scale, 20 to 25 million budget range. I read it 3 times, checked for any identifying details. Satisfied, I clicked send. The response came at 3:17 that afternoon. Richard Mercer himself, not an associate, not a junior partner, the founding partner, responding personally. Yes, they handled projects of this magnitude. Mercer included his direct cell phone number, suggested a private consultation at his home office rather than the firm, for clients who preferred complete discretion. I read between the lines easily. Mercer recognized serious money, wanted to handle this personally, keep it away from the regular staff structure, away from prying eyes, away from Derek entirely. Perfect. I waited 3 hours before responding. Couldn't appear too eager. The reply was brief. Preferred meeting with senior partners directly. Available this week. Ready to discuss terms immediately. His response arrived within 40 minutes. Friday afternoon. His home office in Medina. Bring identification for preliminary paperwork. I spent Thursday preparing, visited my bank, obtained a certified check for $2 million made out to Mercer and Associates Architecture, initial retainer for the project. Purchased a quality leather portfolio. Selected Friday's clothing carefully. Business casual. Respectable but not flashy. Friday afternoon, I drove to Medina, one of Seattle's wealthiest suburbs. Mercer's home was a waterfront property worth easily $10 million. I parked my phone 150 inches the circular driveway, noted the curious glance from a gardener who probably expected a different kind of vehicle. The walk to the front door took 30 seconds. Mercer opened it himself. Firm handshake. Offered coffee. Led me to a home office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. We talked for 2 hours. I described a fictional development project, a small luxury subdivision I supposedly wanted to build on land I'd acquired. Sustainable design, high-end finishes, the kind of project that would generate significant fees for an architecture firm. Mercer was engaged, enthusiastic, already sketching preliminary concepts. When the time felt right, I reached inside my jacket, removed the envelope, slid it across his desk. I'm prepared to retain your firm with $2 million today. The full project budget will be finalized within 60 days. But I have conditions. Mercer opened the envelope, examined the certified check. His expression shifted. This wasn't a theoretical discussion anymore. I'm listening. First, this arrangement remains confidential until I'm ready to proceed publicly. No staff involvement until I authorize it. He hesitated. That's unusual. I value privacy. I've seen too many deals fall apart because information leaked prematurely. Staff talk. Assumptions get made. I prefer to control the narrative. Mercer studied me, then nodded slowly. Understandable. And the second condition? When I'm ready to formalize the full contract, I want to do it at your firm's office. During normal business hours, I want to see your team in their natural environment before committing $20 million to a multi-year project. His expression suggested mild confusion, but he was looking at a project that would generate substantial fees for years. That can certainly be arranged. We spent another hour on preliminary discussions. Timeline. Design philosophy. Budget parameters. All theoretical, but convincingly detailed. As the meeting concluded, I let the conversation turn casual. Mercer mentioned pride in his team, their professionalism, their attention to detail. I kept my voice carefully offhand. Excellent organization. Actually, my son-in-law works at your firm. Derek Novak. Perhaps you know him. Mercer's expression shifted. Recognition, then careful professional neutrality. Derek. Yes, he's one of our senior project architects. Your family by marriage? We don't discuss business much at family dinners. I prefer keeping family and finances separate. I'm sure you understand the wisdom of that. I do indeed. I stood, gathering my portfolio. It'll be interesting to see his reaction when I finalize this contract. I haven't mentioned my development plans to family. Should be quite a surprise. Mercer's face suggested he was beginning to understand this wasn't just a business transaction. But the retainer was deposited. The preliminary agreement signed. The money secured. We'll contact you when we're ready to schedule the formalization meeting, he said. Perfect. I'll look forward to it. I left through the front entrance, walked to my truck at a measured pace. Only when I was seated alone with the door closed did I allow the tension to release from my shoulders. 3 weeks until Derek discovered his father-in-law wasn't a powerless retiree, living on Social Security. 3 weeks until the truth became undeniably visible. The phone rang at 9:47 on a Thursday morning. Richard Mercer's voice, professionally warm. "Mr. Crawford, the preliminary project documentation is ready. We'd like to schedule your visit to the office to discuss next steps. When would be convenient?" I glanced at the calendar. "This afternoon, 2 o'clock. Excellent. I'll have everything prepared. Looking forward to it." After hanging up, I moved through my preparation with deliberate care, removed my decent watch, replaced it with an old digital Casio, selected my most worn jeans, a faded flannel shirt, scuffed work boots, studied myself in the bathroom mirror. Perfect. The image of a modest retiree, exactly what Derek expected to see, exactly what would make the contrast devastating. The drive to downtown Seattle took 50 minutes. I pulled the F-150 into visitor parking at Mercer & Associates building. Didn't hide this time. Parked prominently near the main entrance. The lobby was all glass and steel and expensive modern art. A receptionist looked up with a practiced smile, started to greet me, then paused, clearly uncertain about a man in worn flannel walking into a high-end architecture firm. "May I help you?" Her tone had shifted slightly, polite but questioning. "James Crawford. Richard Mercer is expecting me." Her expression flickered with surprise. She checked her computer. "Of course, Mr. Crawford. Please. The elevator to the 4th floor. Mr. Mercer will meet you." Through the glass walls of the elevator, I spotted Derek on the main floor. He was mid-conversation with what appeared to be clients, gesturing at blueprints spread across a table, performing his role as successful architect. He glanced toward the elevator, did a visible double-take. His expression shifted, confusion, then irritation, then something like embarrassment. He looked quickly back to his clients, pretending he hadn't noticed me. When the elevator opened on 4, Mercer was waiting personally. "Mr. Crawford, right on time. Please, let's review everything in the conference room." He led me to a glass-walled conference room visible to the entire floor. I could see Derek below through the interior windows, still with his clients but repeatedly glancing up toward us. Mercer spread documents across the table, project estimates, preliminary designs, contract terms for a $22 million development. "We've outlined several approaches based on our discussion. If you'll review these," I began examining documents, signing preliminary authorizations, taking my time. Derek appeared at the conference room door. He'd left his clients. His face was a mixture of confusion and poorly concealed irritation. "Walter? What are you doing here?" I looked up, expression neutral, finalizing my project contract. "James Crawford is the name I use for business matters. Keeps things cleaner." "You're what?" Mercer intervened smoothly, sensing tension he didn't fully understand. "Mr. Crawford is commissioning a significant development project, one of our largest new clients this quarter." Derek's mouth opened, closed, his brain visibly struggling to reconcile the information. "That's impossible. You don't have that kind of money. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive a pickup truck from the 90s. "I do live in a modest apartment," I said calmly. "And I do drive an older truck. I'm not sure what that has to do with my net worth." Other staff members were beginning to notice the conversation. The glass walls hid nothing. Voices carried. Mercer's expression had shifted. He was beginning to piece together the family dynamics at play. "Derek, perhaps we should discuss this privately after Mr. Crawford and I conclude our business." But Derek wasn't listening. His voice rose, drawing more attention. "This is some kind of joke. You worked at a machine shop. You're retired on nothing. Sarah said you were struggling." "I owned Whitmore Precision Manufacturing," I corrected quietly. "Sold it 2 years ago. $28 million, all cash." The office had gone completely silent, every employee watching through the glass. Derek's face drained of color. "That's a lie. It's a matter of public record. The acquisition was reported in several trade publications." Derek spun toward Mercer. "There must be some mistake. This is my father-in-law. He's a nobody." Mercer's jaw tightened. His voice went cold. "He's one of our most valued prospective clients. and you're currently disrupting a confidential contract discussion. I continued reviewing documents, signing where indicated. Hands completely steady. Derek's expression cycled through emotions. Shock, disbelief, then something uglier. Calculation, opportunism. Walter, wait. We should talk. Family should discuss these things privately. His tone had shifted entirely. Conciliatory now. Friendly. Maybe I could be involved in the project. Provide input. You'd want family looking out for your interests, right? No, I said simply. But I'm family. I could advise on the design. Make sure you're not being overcharged. I know how these firms operate from the inside. You've given me plenty of advice, Derek, about my apartment, my truck, my fixed income, my practical lifestyle. I set down the pen, looked at him directly. I don't require any additional guidance from you. Someone in the office coughed. Uncomfortable silence hung in the air. Derek tried a different approach, voice softer, almost pleading now. Think about the kids. Sarah, we could really use. I interrupted him calmly but firmly. The children need winter coats that fit. Sarah needs a husband who doesn't spend $93,000 on a car while his daughter's sweater has holes in the sleeves. Those things would be considerably more useful than your professional advice. His face flushed dark red. You have no right to judge me. I have every right. I'm their grandfather. I held his gaze without blinking, and I'm done watching you prioritize your image over their basic needs. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a manila envelope, slid it across the table toward Mercer. There's something else you should see, both of you. Mercer opened the envelope cautiously. Inside were copies of the photographs. Derek and Vanessa at restaurants, at hotels. His wedding ring visible in every shot. Timestamps spanning 8 months. These document your senior architect conducting an extramarital affair with an interior designer your firm contracts with, Vanessa Thornton. 8 months, at minimum, during which time he's accumulated over $85,000 in hidden personal debt while telling his wife they couldn't afford new clothes for the children. Derek's face went white. Where did you get those? A professional investigator. Someone who documents facts, not assumptions. Mercer studied the photographs. His expression hardened with each image. He looked up at Derek with undisguised contempt. You've been conducting a personal relationship with Vanessa Thornton while she's working on client projects you're supervising? It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. Mercer's voice could have frozen water. Clear out your desk. Effective immediately. HR will contact you about final paperwork. You can't fire me over personal matters. I can fire you for compromising client relationships, for conflicts of interest, and for conduct unbecoming of a senior architect at this firm. The affair with a contracted designer alone is grounds for immediate termination. Mercer turned to his assistant, who had appeared in the doorway. Security to escort Mr. Novak from the building. He's no longer employed here. Derek stared at me with something approaching hatred. You planned this. All of it. I planned to protect my daughter and grandchildren. You planned your own destruction. I simply provided the appropriate audience. I gathered my portfolio, stood, extended my hand to Mercer. I apologize for the disruption. Perhaps we can reschedule the contract finalization for next week. When the atmosphere is more professional, Mercer shook my hand firmly. Of course, Mr. Crawford. I'll call you tomorrow. I walked toward the elevator without looking back. Behind me, I heard Derek's voice rising in protest, then security officers arriving. The elevator doors closed on his stricken face. From the parking garage, I sat in my F-150 for 5 full minutes, processing what I'd set in motion. Then I drove directly to Sarah's house. The BMW still sat in the driveway. For now, Sarah answered the door, confused. Dad? What are you doing here? It's Thursday afternoon. We need to talk, sweetheart. Can I come in? She stepped aside, searching my face. You look strange. Is everything okay? I walked to the kitchen table, sat down. Sit with me, please. Derek will be home soon. He texted that he was leaving work early. Something about a meeting that went badly. I know. Sit down, Sarah. She sat slowly, watching me with growing unease. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo gallery, turned the screen toward her. The first image showed Derek and Vanessa at Canlis, his hand covering hers on the table, their faces close, intimate. Sarah stared. Her face went very still. I swiped to the next photo, another restaurant, his arm around Vanessa's shoulders. How long? Her voice was barely audible. At least 8 months. That's what the investigator documented. Could be longer. I swiped again. Hotel entrance. Timestamp visible. Sarah's hands trembled. She pulled the phone closer, swiped through more images herself, each one confirming what she didn't want to believe. You hired an investigator, she said. You spied on my husband. I documented his behavior. There's a difference. I'm sorry you had to see this, but you needed to know the truth. She looked up, eyes wet. Why? Why would you do this to our family? Because you are my family. Because those children deserve better than a father who spends money on another woman while they wear worn-out clothes. Because I've watched you become smaller every year you've been with him, and I couldn't stay silent anymore. I pulled out the financial documents, laid them on the table. He's borrowed $85,000, without your knowledge. Personal loans and credit cards you've never seen. Your family's total debt is $470,000. He's been spending on her, on that image he maintains, while telling you the children couldn't have new things because money was tight. Sarah stared at the papers. Account numbers, dates, balances, a financial life she'd never known existed. This morning, I continued, I went to his firm. I've been working on a development project with them. $22 million budget. Derek found out when I finalized the preliminary contract in front of his entire office. Her head snapped up. You what? I also provided his boss with photographs of the affair and documentation that he's been conducting a relationship with a designer the firm contracts with. He was fired. Sarah stood abruptly, paced the kitchen. This is too much. I can't process this. I know it's overwhelming. She spun to face me. You've been rich this whole time? You let us think you were struggling? Let him mock you at every dinner? I sold the business 2 years ago. $28 million. I've been living modestly, because stuff doesn't matter to me anymore. Not since your mother died. Derek made assumptions based on appearances. I let him. You let him treat you like you were nothing. I needed to see who he really was when he thought no one important was watching. I needed you to see it too. Her face crumbled. You should have told me. Would you have believed me? If I'd come to you 6 months ago with suspicions, would you have listened? Or would you have defended him? She didn't answer. We both knew what she would have done. The front door opened. Derek appeared, carrying a cardboard box, tie loosened, face flushed with anger and shock. He saw me, stopped dead. You, his voice shook. You destroyed everything. No, I said calmly. You destroyed everything. I simply stopped pretending to be what you expected. He turned to Sarah. Did he tell you? Did he tell you what he did to me? He showed me the photographs. Her voice was quiet but steady. Of you and Vanessa. 8 months of photographs. Derek's face went pale. That's taken out of context. I can explain. 8 months, Sarah repeated, while we couldn't afford to fix Madison's lamp, while Tyler's coat zipper was broken, while you bought a $93,000 car and told me we needed to budget more carefully. It's not that simple. Get out. Derek stared at her. This is my house. It's our house. And I want you to leave. Now. He looked at me. Back at Sarah. The calculation visible on his face, trying to find an angle that would work. You're choosing him over me? After what he did? He manipulated everything. He humiliated me in front of my colleagues. I'm choosing truth over lies. I'm choosing my children over your ego. Sarah's voice hardened. Get out of this house, Derek. We'll discuss arrangements through lawyers. He stood frozen for a long moment, then grabbed his car keys from the counter, walked out without another word. The BMW roared to life, reversed too fast, sped away down the street. Sarah sank into a chair, put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I moved around the table, put my hand on her shoulder. Let her cry. I know this hurts, sweetheart. But you and the children will be okay. I promise you that. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. How? How can any of this be okay? Because you're stronger than he ever let you believe. Because the children will thrive when they're not walking on eggshells. And because I'm here, not to control things, not to fix everything, but to support you while you rebuild. She cried for a long time. I stayed beside her, said nothing. Just let her feel what she needed to feel. Eventually, she wiped her eyes. The kids will be home from school in an hour. What do I tell them? The truth, or at least a version they can understand. That Dad made some bad choices, that things are going to change, that Grandpa is here to help. She nodded slowly, then looked at me. You really have $28 million? I do. And you've been living in that little apartment by choice? After your mother died, I realized something important. Things don't matter much. People do. What you build with your time matters. The money is a tool. It's not the point. I don't know how to feel about any of this. That's okay. You don't have to know today. Just know that you're not alone. 8 weeks later, I sat in the family courtroom in Seattle. Sarah at the plaintiff's table with her attorney, Margaret Chen. Across the aisle, Derek in a borrowed suit beside a lawyer he was struggling to afford. The divorce proceedings had moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Adultery, financial deception, hidden debt. His attorney had advised him to negotiate rather than fight. Judge Williams reviewed the documents. This appears relatively straightforward given the documentation provided. Margaret stood. Your Honor, my client seeks primary custody, child support proportional to the respondent's current income and future earning potential, an equitable division of marital assets, excluding the respondent's undisclosed personal debts. Derek's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client requests shared custody and disputes certain aspects of the asset division. On what grounds? My client believes external interference from the maternal grandfather has unfairly influenced these proceedings and... Stop! Judge Williams held up a hand. Unless you can demonstrate that Mr. Walter Whitmore's financial support constitutes marital property, his involvement as a grandparent is irrelevant to these proceedings. Is there any such evidence? Derek's attorney hesitated. No, Your Honor. Judge Williams reviewed the documents again. Primary custody awarded to petitioner Sarah Novak. Respondent granted standard visitation, every other weekend, and shared holidays. Child support set at $2,200 monthly based on respondent's demonstrated earning capacity. Marital home awarded to petitioner. Respondent's separate personal debts remain his sole responsibility and are not subject to division. The gavel fell. Outside the courthouse, Sarah stood in April sunshine. First time I'd seen her truly smile in months. It's over, she said. The legal part is. The rest takes time. Thank you, Dad, for everything. Even the parts I'm still angry about. That's fair. You have a right to those feelings. She hugged me properly. Not the quick, obligatory hugs from before. A real embrace. I'm starting to understand why you did it the way you did, she said. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have defended him. I would have made excuses. The hardest truths are the ones we have to see for ourselves. 4 months later, I sat at Sarah's kitchen table helping Tyler with his math homework. Madison worked on a school project nearby, something about marine biology. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. Sarah had repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, made the space her own. She'd started a new job at an environmental nonprofit, using her law degree the way she'd originally intended, before Derek had convinced her that corporate work was more practical, more prestigious. She was making less money and seemed 10 years younger. The children wore new clothes, proper winter gear for Seattle's rainy seasons. Not because I'd bought everything, though I'd helped, because Sarah had, with her own money, pride in every purchase. Grandpa, can you check this problem? Tyler pushed his worksheet toward me. Let's look at it together. We worked through the equation, not doing it for him, guiding him to find the answer himself. Sarah came home at 5:30, smiled seeing us at the table. How was the office? I asked. Good. Really good. We're working on a Puget Sound restoration project. Actually making a difference. That sounds like the daughter I remember. After dinner, after the kids went to their rooms, Sarah and I sat with tea. "I've been thinking," she said, "about everything that happened. And part of me still wishes you'd told me sooner. About the money. About what you knew. I understand that. But another part knows I wouldn't have listened. I would have explained it away. Told you Derek was stressed. That things would get better." She looked at me. "I've been thinking about Mom. What she would have said about all of this. Your mother would have been proud of you. For leaving. For rebuilding. For being strong enough to face the truth when it was finally undeniable." She would have hit Derek with a frying pan. We both laughed. First real laugh I'd heard from her in what felt like years. "The kids seem happier," I observed. "They are. It's strange. They miss Derek in some ways. But they're lighter, less careful with their words. They don't flinch when someone raises their voice. That's worth everything." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "The project with Mercer's firm, the development thing, was any of that real?" "It started as a means to an end, but Richard Mercer runs a good firm. We've continued discussions. There's some land near Olympia I've been looking at. Small development, sustainable design, green building practices. Your mother would have liked the idea." "You're actually going to build something?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'll find a better use for the money." The point was never the project. The point was making sure Derek faced consequences in front of people whose opinion he valued. Private confrontation wouldn't have ended his behavior. Men like that only change when their image is shattered publicly. Sarah nodded slowly. It was humiliating for him, that day at his office. It was. And I won't pretend I didn't feel some satisfaction in that. I met her eyes honestly. "But Sarah, he was humiliating you privately every day, making you feel small, making you question your worth, making the children feel like burdens. Sometimes breaking one person's pride is necessary to restore another person's dignity." She was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I love you, Dad. Even when you're manipulative and sneaky. I love you too, sweetheart. Even when you're stubborn and defensive." She laughed again. The sound filled the kitchen. Later, driving back to Tacoma, I thought about the past several months. The investigation, the confrontation, the divorce, the rebuilding. Had I gone too far? Perhaps. Could I have handled things with more grace, less calculation? Probably. But Sarah was free. The children were cared for. Derek was facing the consequences of his own choices. Sometimes justice looks like revenge. Sometimes it is revenge. The line between them depends entirely on intention. My intention had been protection. The method had been exposure. I could live with that. At my apartment, I opened my laptop, checked my account balance, 26,400,000 and change. Growing steadily with careful investments, more money than I'd ever need for myself. I opened a fresh document, typed at the top, Education Trust Fund, Tyler and Madison Novak. Started researching trust structures, tax implications, educational expense categories, college savings projections. The money was never the point, but it was a useful tool, and I intended to use it wisely. Before bed, my phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. "Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for not giving up. I love you, Dad. See you Sunday." I typed back, "I love you too, sweetheart. Always have. Always will." Set the phone down. Looked at Eleanor's photo on the bookshelf. "We raised a strong one," I said quietly. Then I smiled in the darkness. Justice served. Family restored. Future secured. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Silver Vengeance. Leave a comment telling us what state you're watching from. Your support helps us create more stories like this one. To hear the next story, click the video appearing on your screen now. Thank you for watching.